everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. My name is Brian Vitale. Joining me today, I've got some members of the usual crew. We've got Adam Vitale.
Hello.
We have James Galizio.
Hey, folks.
We have Chow Min Wu.
Hello, people.
And joining us today, we have Jess Reyes.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the podcast, Jess.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. And we'll be missing Josh today, but he has not missed a day in like over a year, so we will allow that. So we are effectively trading out Josh to get Jess on the podcast, and welcome back Adam after a couple of absent weeks. So I think that's a fair trade. So this is the first podcast in the month of January that I feel like the year has really started rolling and ramped up. First couple podcasts was a lot of kind of wind down from our Game of the Year discussion. I guess that's the last time we heard from Jess was when all five of us were on that Game of the Year podcast in like December that we posted at the beginning of this month. We've been talking about a few early releases in January, some of the trickles of news that had come out early in the month, including, of course, the big Microsoft acquisition from last week. But today we're actually going to be talking about, one of the first major releases of the year, and that is obviously, of course, Pokemon Legends Arceus. Before we get to that, though, this has also been a really busy week up on the website on rpgsite.net in terms of some reviews and features and previews that have gone up over the last 7 days. So before we get into what games we've been playing over the last week, I did at least want to give these their shout out so you guys can check them out if you're interested in reading about them. Specifically, we got up a preview for Atelier Sophie 2, which is coming out in about a month from now, from Paige Chamberlain. So she was able to get access to a preview copy of the game, and I'm not sure exactly what her history with the series is, but of course, after the success of Ryza and Ryza 2 over the last couple years, it's interesting to see Gus go back to another direct sequel for one of their older games. And Atelier Sophie 2, we've talked about in the news a fair bit over the last couple months of the podcast. So it's kind of cool to at least get more of a direct hands-on preview for the game up on the site. So if you're at all interested in that series, we do have that preview up from Paige on the website right now. We also have a couple of like non-preview features up on the site from both Alex and actually, no, these are both from Alex Donaldson. So the first one is Alex is a Final Fantasy nut. If you don't know that already, he is. It's partially why he helped found RPG Site. But he wrote up a feature article titled, I'll just let the title speak for itself, Why Wasn't Doom Train in Final Fantasy 15? So this is kind of just more of a fun article. And that's one of our goals for the year is to try to write some more kind of like opinion pieces about what we're passionate about, things that we like to see in games, the reason why we enjoy writing about them beyond just a typical news review podcast sort of format. So Alex did end up writing our review for Final Fantasy 15 back when it launched about 5 years ago. And it's a game that he's kind of held close to his chest for a while. So kind of fun to see him take a kind of a more like comedic approach to a feature about that game as it turns 5 years old, or has turned 5 years old. He also wrote, and this is a topic that we're going to get into later in this podcast for a good significant discussion later, is about the RPG mechanics of Pokemon Legends Arceus. So this isn't a formal review, but it's basically a feature about his time with the game and why he was really impressed with the kind of the tack that it ended up taking that made it feel so different from other Pokemon games. And I'm sure we have a couple of us on the podcast this week that have also had a chance to start playing it. So I'm sure a lot of those same nuggets and those same bits will crop up again in that discussion. We also do have a whole bunch of guides that are in progress for Pokemon Legends Arceus up on the site. So if you're playing it right now and you're having any interest in completing the quest or finding specific Pokemons or any tips and tricks at all, we have a whole bunch of stuff on the site. And I know Alex and Andrea have been working really hard to put that all together from their time with the game. And then finally, I did also discuss last week my time with Expeditions Rome. And I talked most of my discussion last week, and I'll bring it up again later in the podcast this week. But I did write up my final thoughts into a formal review that I just put up on the site this morning. So if that's a game that you're interested in from early January or from mid-January, that is up on the site as well. So without further ado, let's go into discussion about potentially the first big major release of the year, at least in terms of coverage for our site, of course, is Pokemon Legends Arceus. Jess, I'm glad that we have you on the podcast today because I know that you have had a lot of chance to at least start playing it over the last couple of days, along with James as well has been able to put some time into it. But so, Jess, I'll start with you. Your time with Pokemon Legends Arceus, about just kind of give me a high level how far are you into the game? What are your thoughts so far? Like I don't know if you bothered to play the Sinnoh remakes from last year, the Brilliant Diamond, or if this is your first Pokemon game in a while. Just tell me about your time with the game so far and how you're feeling.
Okay, so for context, I've played most Pokemon games, including spin-offs. I didn't play Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl just because I didn't feel compelled to. But I do know, like I know like I played Diamond and Pearl back in the day and all that. I know all the Pokemon. This time, um, it's been a while since I revisited the Sinnoh region, but I still recognize them. The first thing that out to me about this game, and I only got it yesterday with everyone else because I didn't get any early code. But
Very few people did, for the record.
yeah, but yeah, people were always raving about it being like, oh, it's like gonna be like Breath of the Wild. And to be fair, I see the inspiration, but to me, it does come off as like more Zelda than any Pokemon game that I've ever played. Not just because of the scenery, but because of the gameplay, and in fact, some maybe a little bit in terms of humor too. Uh, there's a whole bunch of different mechanics that they introduced into the game that have to do with like a more realistic style almost. Like it's battles work a little bit differently compared to the average Pokemon game in a way that I need some time to get used to it. To me, it feels like there's some scaling that's a little bit different when it comes to how attacks work and if Pokemon will even attack depending on certain conditions. And then there's even swift, what is it, strong and agile style for when you master a move to make them do different things.
Right, and I know that's a thing that Alex kind of brought up on his little preview feature up on the site, as well as something that was kind of highlighted in one of the gameplay trailers preceding the release of the game. The ability to basically change the strength of a move to either carry out the attack quicker or slower at the expense of doing a stronger attack. You might get attacked first before it goes off, or a quicker attack might bring up your next turn more quickly. So you mentioned that you have to master. That's like a progression system. You have to master a move before you even get the chance to make that choice.
Yeah, and the thing is, the thing that stands out to me about this game is like it's Pokemon but more realistic, if that makes sense. It's like each Pokemon that you approach has different behaviors. Like some might be kind of timid and run away from you. Some might just stay there as you walk up to them because they're friendly with humans. Some of them are aggressive and attack you right away. Um, there's even Pokemon of different sizes, and I guess like that just came across as actually approaching wildlife, and even the characters in the game re- talk about Pokemon as if they're an actual danger, as if you're approaching a real animal instead of like a gamified being like it is in the normal game. And I
Unfortunately,
just find it really interesting.
I'm in like a place where the last Pokemon games I've really played are, oddly enough, the original Diamond and Pearl releases. And of course, if you're not aware, the Pokemon Legends Arceus takes place in the same region, just hundreds of years in the past. So Hisui is basically ancient Sinnoh. Um, and I'm still like in the mindset where wild Pokemon are in the wild grass because I've never played like Let's Go, where they're freely roaming around, or the wild areas of Sword and Shield. I've watched, of course, several of the gameplay trailers, the preceding release, but I haven't watched anything since release, like Twitch streamers or video reviews. Uh, when you're out in the area outside of the starting village, how prevalent are do you run into Pokemon everywhere? Are they pretty scattered, or at any given time, how many Pokemon do you see running around? Like, I'm just trying to get like a feel for like how dense they are in terms of like their population and how many you'll see at any given time.
And each like in you can find them pretty easily. Like as I'm traveling, like maybe if there's an open space, there'll be like at least three Pokemon there, and then across the river
Okay.
there'll be three Pokemon there again. Like it's pretty easy to find them. Like, if I'm like, oops, I just chased away one Pokemon or like the entire group because I threw a ball and it missed. I don't need to wait that long to find more. There are more rare Pokemon every now and then. Like this was something I was kind of upset about. Like I saw an Eevee next to a Bidoof, and I tried to throw a ball at it, but it got out and it just ran away, and now I can't find another one. So
Oh, I
I'll
actually
need
kind of like
to.
that though.
I thought you said I
Yeah,
thought you were gonna say you hit the Bidoof instead or something.
no, but yeah, it's I like it. I think that's fair. It makes sense to me. It's like Eevee in the old games is also a rare Pokemon a lot of the time, so I'm confident I'll find another one. But it is like I'm noticing some new things still, like that there's Pokemon that pop up less often than others, some that only pop up during nighttime, etc.
So, which Pokemon did you pick as your starter? Like,
Cyndaquil.
this is
No, no
I did
hesitation.
the same. I always do the same.
Yep. Same.
Wait.
For me as a Pokemon player, it's always a fire type. I don't give a crap about the others. It's always a fire type.
but Oshawott.
No, fire is the way to go.
So Chow,
Honest-
have you played it, or are you just saying that you would have picked the fire type?
No, I actually played about an hour.
Okay.
I got the
I
game
didn't mean to leave
late
you hanging.
last night.
I mentioned how Jess and James were playing it. I just didn't realize you had also had it. I also have pre-ordered the game and downloaded it. I was just finishing up some stuff yesterday and haven't got a chance to it. I'll probably be playing it as soon as this podcast is up and ready and out. So for next week, I imagine we'll have even a further discussion on this. So obviously a lot of the premise of the story has been kind of covered in some of the marketing material, but let's say my memory is hazy and I don't exactly remember. Like, I know that you're part of an explorer group of the region, but can you just kind of go over like what is the general premise of the game and like why you're out exploring outside of Jubilife Village for these Pokemon?
Yeah, apparently your character is like a capture god, and like no one else knows how to catch Pokemon as good as them. So the professor's like, "Oh my god, you're amazing. We need you as part of the team." So
I
then
feel like you're glossing over something.
well, I'm not.
It's
Is
the
that a
first cut.
spoiler?
It's the
First
first
cutscene
cutscene.
you got Isekai, technically.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure if it was a spoiler or not, but yeah, I didn't see that coming honestly. When
If
it's
it's
suddenly like,
if it's in the first cutscene, it's not a spoiler. Wait, so is your character from the future? What?
It's implied that the character for Arceus Legends is the same one from Diamond and Pearl.
oh,
Huh.
I didn't realize. I knew it was from the future. I didn't
Yeah,
think it was
because-
Diamond Pearl, to be honest.
Well, yeah, that's the reason why you're a capture god, because you've had all the experience from Diamond and Pearl, and why you're not afraid of Pokemon.
Oh, okay. Well, but yeah. Basically, it is isekai. It's like a character that she like falls out of the sky. He falls out of the sky, whichever gender you pick. And then ends up in this region, and they can catch Pokemon better than anyone else. So they're like, we need them as part of our team. And in exchange for room and board, you catch Pokemon for the professor. Try to fill in the Pokedex.
Do they explain the choice of starters, like why it's Cyndaquil and why it's Rowlet in
No,
the Sinnoh
Oh.
region? No.
No, actually, it is just like the professor was chasing after them, and he just happened to have these 3 Pokemon on hand, and he's like, "Can you help me recapture them?" And then you recapture them, but it's not unclear why he had them in the first place.
Well, yeah, I was just wondering maybe there's like a single line of dialogue that said like, this Rowlet, I think, traveled far from home or whatever. I didn't know, so I took care of it. And you want it, or something like that. Just because, like, let's see, Cyndaquil is from Johto, which is I think based on the Kansai region, I think. And then what gen was Rowlet from? 7.
yeah, 7.
And what area is that?
I think
What
it
was
might
between-
be a 4 and 1, honestly.
Just
Anyways.
Hawaii, right?
Oh, right, it was. Yeah, that was Alola. So
Oh.
this bird just flew over the Pacific and made its way here or something. So have you encountered any of one of the big things that they kind of placed as seemingly like the main progression of the narrative is encountering and pacifying, for lack of a better word, noble Pokemon, with seemingly the first one being that, its name is, I'm blanking on the name, the Scyther Axed Arm
Cleaver.
one. Cleaver. Is that indeed, have you run into Cleaver yet?
No, but there's
Oh.
another thing that I did run into. There's another part of the game called, like, there's such thing as alpha Pokemon, and they seem to be a lot bigger than usual with red eyes. And I came across it like all of a sudden without realizing that it would be there. I was, trying to catch more Buizels because I wanted to get, one with like really good IVs. And then suddenly there's like a giant floatzel right next to it and it started chasing after me. And I was like, I don't know what level this is, but I could tell I'm probably not ready. So I just ran away. That's another part of the game. I'm not sure how integrated alphas will be or like how important they will be later on in the plot. But I know that's another thing that people, like you're supposed to catch bigger Pokemon or like alpha Pokemon for certain reasons.
I did. I said that I hadn't watched any like footage of the game yet, but I guess that was a lie. Now that I think about it, because I did see someone sharing like a Twitter clip of someone running into an alpha Snorlax, and that Snorlax was like yelling at them or whatever, and like was actually pretty imposing up on its hind legs or whatever. So I'll hand it over to James now, just to talk about, because you've also had some time with the game, and just curious about, you have played, I know you were one of our main coverage sources for a lot of the Sword and Shield wild areas and even like the Pokemon Let's Go games before that. And there were aspects of those games that I know that you really latched onto in your write-ups for both those titles. I'm wondering if Arceus has impressed you in some fashion, or maybe you're feeling the opposite and it's not quite what you expected. Just what are your thoughts on the game so far?
I feel like even before the leaks came out that really turned folks' thoughts around on the game, I was pretty hopeful for the game, just because even though I really didn't like base game Sword and Shield, the expansion pass, I'm of the opinion that it's probably the best that Pokemon has been since Black 2 and White 2. And a lot of the reasons why I felt that way kind of informed my thoughts and feelings going into Arceus, because like especially the Crown Tundra, now that I'm playing Arceus, definitely feels like the prototype for the type of game that they wanted to make with this. And I'll be honest, like I'm loving this. This might be my favorite game in the series right now.
Wow. How far are you?
I'm in the 4th region, so I'm probably like 2/3 of the way through the story or something like that.
But then I'm sure there's certain other people that have completely blitzed the game and it's out there on Twitch or whatever. But I do wonder, like, Pokemon games, at least in my outside experience, since I haven't played them since Diamond and Pearl, it feels like at least in the traditional games, that they pack in more and more content like after the league or after the main story ends. So I do wonder like how long of a tail Arceus will have beyond the whatever the main story. I guess I'll ask that question because I don't know, like, in the premise of this game's narrative, what is the climax point if there is no like gym challenge or no league at the end? I don't know if that's something that you can glean based on what you've experienced so far about like what it's leading to, or if that kind of goes into spoiler territory.
Well, there's boss battles, like actual boss battles. So
Is that the noble Pokemon you're talking about?
yeah, they're kind of weird in the sense. I'm not sure how I feel about them, because for the most part, you're not Pokemon battling them. You're just throwing these bombs at them, and then there might be an opportunity for you to switch to a Pokemon battle for a bit. But for the most part, it's just like action combat. And you're just dodging attacks and throwing stuff at them. And the game even outright says, time your dodges. They have iframes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And one of the more recent right before launch trailers did show that with the bomb throwing. And I think I remember, I think I mentioned on the podcast after that trailer, whether it was last week or 2 weeks ago, that it looked a bit, out of all the different gameplay mechanics they've shown so far, that was the one that I felt the least like high on. It's like, I don't know if this works too well. But the fact that you can go into like maybe the more traditional battle and play with the strong agile attacks or things like that, hopefully it'll end up feeling like a good mix. So all three of you ended up picking Cyndaquil. Is that what I gathered?
Yep.
The right choice.
Do you?
Oshawott.
I guess Adam, you can pick Oshawott, and I will pick Rowlet. Right, and then next week we will have all of our bases covered. Do you get like the opportunity to get the other starters, or maybe it won't be till like later in the game? I guess let me ask a more general question along the same lines. Is there like a incentive, or at least a presumed incentive, to kind of try to capture one of every Pokemon in the game, like there is in the more traditional entries?
Yes.
I'd say there's even more of a reason.
Yeah, like honestly, the biggest change with Arceus that like hands out to me, and I'm not sure if Jess and Chow feel the same way, but just how easy it is to like capture Pokemon. Like everything is so seamless. It's actually kind of insane. Like you can throw a Pokeball at a Pokemon, it'll get into it, and you can literally just immediately start booking it before even waiting for the capture to complete. Or you can like throw a Pokeball at one Pokemon and then immediately throw a Pokemon in one of your like on your team at another Pokemon. So as a Pokemon's getting captured, you're literally starting a battle with a different Pokemon.
Okay,
And
I haven't gone that advanced yet, but yeah, like I can understand that you could do that in theory. I just like multitasking. I'm working on it.
it's also kind of funny because since battles are completely seamless in the overworld and the fact that you can just walk around during battles, there's some interesting like situations you can run into. Like there's these like random events called space-time rifts that can sometimes appear in zones, and they're pretty cool when they appear because not only do they spawn a bunch of Pokemon and rare items for you to catch and pick up respectively, but they're like hyper aggressive. So I ran into an issue where I like was in a space-time rift and I started a battle and I accidentally kited 4 Pokemon, so it was 4v1.
Oh, and the game actually allows for that, like a 4v1?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Oh
crazy.
my god.
And I was like absolutely terrified because I wasn't expecting that because I was like, I didn't even think the game supported 4v1 in the
Yeah,
code.
that's kind of what I was getting at. Like, I assumed it would just like queue them up or something.
Yeah, no, I was just like, oh god, oh fuck.
That's
I
real. I guess it's like things just really got real.
I think my favorite, as someone who has not had a chance to play this game yet, I think my favorite kind of theme or through line between Jess and James's experience so far is kind of like almost the emergent storytelling where James is like, I ran into this rift and accidentally, engaged with 4 Pokemon, or Jess was like, I was trying to catch an Eevee amongst a sea of Bidoofs, or ran into an alpha floatzel in a pool of Buizel or whatever. So I think that sort of stuff is kind of the same sort of thing we saw with Breath of the Wild, where people would kind of like the gameplay kind of serves as like the foundation for like how the mechanics work. In Breath of the Wild's case specifically, like all the physics system that was underlying everything. And maybe Legends Arceus isn't quite as polished, but the fact that it kind of allows for those sorts of like experiences that you can't deliberately write. It's just based on how the game is structured, where you might have an experience where you're trying to swim across a lake and you have a task in mind, but then you end up encountering an alpha Snorlax and you have to like change tact immediately and you barely get away, or you get stuck in a battle or something like that. I think that sort of stuff is what this sort of framework really allows for, compared to a traditional Pokemon game, at least from my memory from having played them 10 years ago, or how long ago was Diamond and Pearl? I don't want to know, 15 years ago, where it was just very like prescripted and you just go through the motions and the story is what it is. Where now it just seems like there's more of a framework in play where you can kind of have an experience that's unique to your time with the game that other people might not have, or they might have in a different order.
Oh, by the way, I tried walking across really deep water and drowned myself, so that can happen.
How
You
quickly
may
do
be
you
a
get
god catcher, but you can't swim.
Yeah.
how quickly do you get access to the different like travel mechanics? So obviously I've seen a lot of people with their like weird ears or whatever, but then I know you get the Basket Legion and you get the Braviary. Do you
Get
unlock those
about-
pretty quickly or what?
You get like 1 per zone. Like you get wherever you're first, and then the next zone you get access to Ursaluna, which actually is like your treasure search in this game. I forget the name of it in the other games, but basically it'll help you search for treasure you can dig up. Then you get Basket Legion, the 3rd region, and then you get a Sneasel evolution, a new one, like a split evolution in the 4th region that lets you climb walls.
Ooh.
Huh? Like I'm sure some of those have been covered in in some of the marketing, but I thought it was just Weird Ear, Basket Legion, and Braviary. But I didn't realize there was a Sneasel. And what
Oh
Pokemon
yeah,
did you say for the
that was the
treasure
one
one?
for me too.
It's an evolution for Ursaring.
Ah, a new one then.
Oh.
That's something that's kind of cool. Like, I don't want to spoil like, even though I'm sure it's all out there, so it's kind of weird to like try to be careful for spoilers for this game. But like, we already saw the Hisuian Growlithe, so Hisuian Arcanine is definitely a thing, and I'm sure it's already appeared in some reviews because it's not really a spoiler, but just kind of they kind of deliberately decided not to directly market it. Plus, like potential new starters for the. I actually don't know for certain, and don't answer this, whether or not the starters got new evolutions or new forms. So it'll be kind of cool to once this game is all like cataloged, and once we know exactly everything that was packed into it, how many new forms or new split evolutions that this spin-off game decided to introduce, because I think that seems like a bit of a rarity. It's not the first time it's happened, and I think we had that discussion a little bit when the game was announced. But just compared to like a standard game, how much like, or whether it's like maybe on par with the Alolan or the Galarian forms that were introduced in those generations, how much Pokemon Legends Arceus ended up adding on its own is kind of like this game that exists outside of the paradigm of generations. Is this a Generation 8 game, or is this or what is this?
There's a lot of I've seen like a lot of almost childish arguments. I'm like, is this mainline or not? And it's just like, does it matter?
Yeah, like who cares what bucket you put? Yeah, like it's one of those things where it's like kind of an arbitrary label where it's not going to change what the game is, whether you put it in the mainline bucket or the spin-off bucket. But you kind of see that same sort of thing with like Kingdom Hearts, where it's like, you better not call any game in that series a spin-off at all, because you will get like pilloried for it, even recoded, because it'll have like one story relevant cutscene. People will say, nope, mainline game. So I don't know. Go ahead.
Honestly, playing through Arceus Legends after Sword and Shield DLC and like looking back on Generation 8 as a whole, I actually think I'm going to pitch something to Alex about, I think, like kind of ditching the idea of generations in a sense, like the games have been doing recently, honestly makes for more interesting games, because a game like Arceus Legends could not exist if it had to adhere to literally every Pokemon in the series history and all of the conventions that had become normalized.
Mm-hmm. I do like the idea of getting away from annual releases, getting away from specifically delineating generations and kind of this weird mechanical faction, and just trying to tell stories within the universe that obviously has had decades to build itself up and create its framework. Because, like, as I've kind of alluded to, I'd lost interest in Pokemon long ago, not out of anything like resentful for anything, but just like, I've been there, done that. And now Arceus is changing up the formula, and in a way that I enjoyed, like Coliseum and XD back in the day, where I feel like we haven't got a game like those until this. Like between Coliseum and XD from like the mid aughts, when did those game comes out? Like 2004-ish. And then hopefully I'm not too far off on that date. And now we've obviously had like the Ranger games, we've had like the Pokemon Unite release last year, but there's something about this that just feels like, kind of like James alluded to, more mainline, more relevant, less kind of diversionary. That makes me that something about what it's offering, the premise, the marketing, makes me really interested in playing it. So I'm eager to get to dive into it. Probably not too long after this podcast ends. So Jess and James, did you guys? By the way, I'm giggling at myself that I have Jess and James here talking about Pokemon.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, you didn't catch that? All right, I'll go to Jess.
I didn't think about it.
Well, is there anything about the game so far that we haven't touched on yet that you wanted to go into before we wrap up?
One of the things that I thought was really interesting is that the 3D models are really expressive. Like, I'm actually thinking of pitching an article to somewhere, to like, I don't know, some place where it's you know how Wind Waker Lake became a meme because of how weirdly expressive he was, even though he's silent?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I feel like, honestly, same could be said for these protagonists. They're really expressive. And also, I mean, like, I don't know, you could, like, I feel like when they look happy, they look really cute. And then you could also see them, like, their shocked faces are really animated. And I just really enjoy that. I'm not sure if I know if people care about that, but yeah.
Seeing, like, Dawn's ancestors' faces has become a meme because it's like, she's so good. She's so good.
Okay, so it's already a meme. It's happening.
I guess one other thing that I've seen that was obviously marketed a bit, and it's been part of the series for a while now, is like the customization. where I've seen people like wear like pretty much photo like booty shorts or like a wide brimmed hat or like it just seems like there's pretty extensive like character customization options. So is that a big factor of the game? Do you unlock those like when you take out side quests or things like that?
Yes, there are side quests for you to get more customization options.
Yeah, apparently there's also like for people who pre-ordered, I think they get the matching outfit with the Hishu and Growlithe, right?
I think so.
Well,
Something
I
like
did
that.
pre-order it. I think. Did I pre-order it? I forget if I purchased it like before or after it released. Like officially, like on midnight Eastern time or whenever it released here in North America. Do side quests give you like any other bonuses in addition to cosmetics? Like I don't know if they give you like now you have the ability to buy Ultra Balls or something like that, or like I don't know, tools that you might use in the field or whatever. Like what are some other things that you normally get as like rewards for taking on side quests?
Crafting recipes, maybe?
Oh, do you get those? I guess we haven't talked about crafting at all. What are sorts of things that you craft?
Well, Pokeballs for one, that's one of the first things that you learn how to do, and you could find these pretty easily, so you'll never run out of Pokeballs. You also get ones for potions, and potions revive 50 HP instead of 20 in this game for some reason. That's why I'm saying like I feel like some of the attacks I don't expect them to do as much damage as they do. And the level differences seem a lot less pronounced to me as the regular games. So I mean that one's something different, and then you also get a crafting table that you could take around with you too. So yeah, crafting's a big part of this game. You also crack revives and other kinds of Pokeballs.
So okay, so when I said like a side quest might reward you with Ultra Balls, might reward you with like the ability to craft Ultra Balls or different types of balls or things like that.
And then a later side quest might give you the ability to buy Ultra Balls from the store, because there's been side quests I've done that
Yeah.
deal with that.
What is a typical side quest? Is it just like I want to see a male Buizel or whatever?
Honestly, yeah.
Okay, that was just a guess.
Some stuff like that, but then there's some more interesting ones. Like there's a side quest I'm currently doing where like partway through the game you get the odd keystone for Spiritomb, and then it's like, okay, you're going to find these like wisps in every zone, and now you need to find all 107 of them.
Oh
And they're
my
like
God.
in like remote parts of the maps, and you can't see them normally unless you're right up against them, but at night you can actually see them from a distance because they become fully visible. Kind of cool. And then there's like, even for just like Pokemon capture ones, there's some side quests where it's like specifically, hey, I want to see a huge Buizel, like not just your average size Buizel or a small Buizel or even a big one. I want to see one that's just like the absolute Chad of all Buizels.
That's when you
find
have
it,
to
by the
get
way?
an
I'm still
alpha
looking for
one
that
or
one.
whatever.
Yeah, there's an alpha Buizel you can catch that it'll work.
I'm just laughing at the chat of weasels. Anyways, I'm
But,
really eager to
yeah.
like to get into this tonight because I just finished up what I was doing that I was putting off or hoping to get done in time to put time into this.
Sorry
So
if this has been asked. Is there shiny Pokemon still in this?
Yes.
Damn.
And
There'd
if
be a
it's a
lot of
flying
respect.
type, and if it's a skittish Pokemon and you mess up throwing a Pokeball, it will run away and you're going to hate yourself.
Jesus.
Yeah, mood.
have either of you encountered a shiny yet?
Yes. I encountered a kind of there's a side quest for a Ponyta where it's like, this Ponyta looks really weird, and I was like, oh, I'm guessing it's going to be a Galarian Ponyta. And it's like, nope, it's a shiny.
What color is shiny Ponyta? I don't know off the top of my head.
Blue Flames.
Oh, and Galarian's like My Little Pony, right? All right, so I'm sure this will not be the last time we talk about Pokemon Legends Arceus on the site. Obviously, we don't have an official review up on the site quite yet, again, due to the fact that it seems like pre-release coverage options were very limited. Not a lot of outlets were able to get get hands on it. So we will obviously, of course, talk about that once it goes up and once we have our final thoughts. But I don't know if Josh is planning on playing it or Adam, but I'm sure we'll get some different opinions on the game as Jess, James, and Chow get further, and as the rest of us start and pick starters that are not Cyndaquil or things like that. Jess, is it you that is going to be writing the review for RPG Site, or is it someone else?
Yes.
It
yes,
is
it
you.
is me.
Awesome.
I just got the code on Friday because basically I'm also doing guides for GameSpot and they were able to expense it to me, so I started earlier that day.
Yeah, I mean, like I just put up a really late review for Expedition, so don't always hit embargo, but again, it was kind of out of our hands this time. So whenever you do have that ready, I'll be eager to hopefully get you back on to talk about it once you kind of have your concluding thoughts on the game.
Yeah, so for those who aren't aware, the Pokemon Company has kind of clamped down a bit on review code access for like outlets like ours that aren't like a huge site because of all the leaks, which is sort of funny because it's like, oh,
It happened anyway. Yeah.
Okay, you know what? I actually do have a story about this. Because I'm freelance and I talk to a lot of people. Like some people, they were reviewing for even big outlets and they don't get the codes. Like I know a guy who was reviewing for NPR, another guy was reviewing for NME, and those are big sites, but they still didn't get the code.
Yeah, I was gonna say we were actually I'm guessing we got our code from NOE. That's the only way. Or did we get it from NOA?
We didn't get one, right?
We didn't get a code. We got a launch day code.
No, that's what I meant. It's like there's some people that didn't even get launch day codes for big outlets. I think that's what Jess trying to say.
Huh.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I've heard from probably some of the same people. Maybe even folks that have been on this podcast before. Wink, wink. But yeah.
Yeah, we're totally talking about the same guy, but I know another guy.
Yeah.
I don't know any guys. I just know you guys.
We're pretty good guys.
Take your word for it. But yeah, obviously, Pokemon Company, we are not like a Nintendo focused site in a lot of ways. Even though it seems like more and more recently, Nintendo seems to be a higher plurality of the RPGs releasing in every year. Surprisingly, maybe not last year, but in some previous years. Especially when they like go and publish like Dragon Quest titles that appear on Switch or things like that. So
Triangle Strategy,
and stuff like Octopath Traveler and Triangle Strategy. So
I imagine we're probably going to do something about Chocobo GP, even if it's not an RPG, just because it's a Final Fantasy spinoff. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. But also, one of the nice things about being a smaller site is that we have a little. Obviously, we try to hit embargo whenever we can, but it's not oftentimes we can kind of make sure even if our coverage is a bit delayed, it ends up allowing for some good discussion. It allows for us to have, be able to podcast like this and have multiple people talking about the game rather than just one person who was able to play 2 weeks early and just kind of recounting their experience. So really cool that we were able to get kind of a mixture of opinions here, and that will continue going forward as we discuss this probably in the next couple of weeks. Of course, as we typically do on this site, we don't always play just the newest, latest, and greatest, but oftentimes we try to make time to go into games from the catalog, from history, as we try to knock out games out of our backlog or maybe anticipation of games that are upcoming. This is kind of a very silly preamble that I'm almost giggling to myself for as I segue into what Adam, I know he has been playing for the last 2 weeks as he's been absent from the podcast. So, of course, I don't know if I should just let Adam introduce this. So, Adam, let us know what you have been playing and why, and your time with it so far.
Last summer, TriAce, they revamped the Star Ocean website, and then they announced that the mobile game, which is Anemesis, something like that, like they revamped the Twitter account to be just a Star Ocean general Twitter account. And so it was pretty clear to me that they were going to be working on a new mainline Star Ocean title. Star Ocean, it would be the 6th one, Star Ocean 6. This was announced last fall, sooner than I expected. Now, that's coming out later this year, Star Ocean 6, which is Star Ocean the Divine Force. But I had never played Star Ocean 5, which is Star Ocean Integrity and Faithlessness. I was waiting for a PC port that never came. So I was just like, I give up. Fine. I'll play it on PS4. I played at least one version of it, every other game in the series. So I wanted to play Star Ocean 5 to kind of like prepare for 6. You know, I know they're not like tied, and they're only very loosely tied by story, but in terms of like mechanics and how the games evolve over time and whatnot, and the systems in place. So Star Ocean 5, when it came out, did not review well. I believe it has like a Metacritic of 58. Now, let me start with the good. In quotes. Star Ocean 5's characters are better than Star Ocean 4's. Now, that is the lowest bar possible.
I was gonna say that's not really a high bar.
Star Ocean 4's like cast is literally like, it is in the contention for like literally the worst JRPG cast. Like, I'm dead serious. Like, what is worse than that? Like Limmel and Miracle and Witch Lady and Cyborg Dude and Sarah. I forgot about Sarah. Holy shit. Anyways,
if you want, sorry, I need to interrupt you. If you want to cringe yourself to sleep, just Google like Star Ocean 4 Fly High or something like that.
Yes.
Or
if you nappy time. Or
the best character in that game is Raimi. So, okay, my context is that I've played some version of Star Oceans 1 through 4. I never made time for 5. Unlike Adam, who was waiting for a PC port, I was just kind of like, I am not interested after my time with 4. But yeah, Remy is the only character in Star Ocean 4 that is not terrible, and it's only because she is, to my memory, just completely boring and plain. Every other character is just intrinsically bad, so she's just good by comparison. So anyways, thanks for obviously Star Ocean: The Divine Force is one of our, I think, what did it hit our most anticipated release, or one of our most anticipated releases?
So.
No,
I don't.
It will be releasing this year, but I guess we're not anticipating it very well. But it's on its way, and Star Ocean has not been in a good place for the last several years. You know, Star Ocean 3 was fine. Star Ocean 4 was bad. A lot of people will say that Star Ocean 2 is the only one that's even better than average. So it's never been like a pinnacle of the genre in really in any fashion. So Star Ocean 6 is not called Star Ocean 6 in the West. So it's just called Star Ocean: The Divine Force, kind of in a manner similar to the Yakuza series, not titling 7 in the West. So yeah, that's just the context I just wanted to make sure that we had. So Adam, thanks for taking the plunge for us. And all of us who avoided Star Ocean 5, I don't think Chow's played it. But
I watched the stream. That's about it.
That's as far as you were willing to go. So the characters are better than 4. That's a good first step, I suppose.
Yeah, and honestly, like on paper, the plot of Star Ocean 5 isn't terrible. It's fine in terms of like the events that happened in sequence. However, it has a lot of problems, which is one reason why it didn't review very well.
The plot specifically, you mean?
No, not the plot, just the game. The plot itself, like again, on paper, it's fine. Like it's not like poorly structured, like in terms of the events that happen. But one thing that kind of caught me off guard, and I wasn't aware of this, was how the game is presented. Like when you start up the game, you're expecting, a couple of cutscenes or whatnot, introducing, the main character, your starting town and whatnot. But this game does not have very many cutscenes. And what it does instead is like, it almost feels like an old school, like MMORPG or something where you're just controlling your character model and like you're running around the city or whatnot. And then like the game will kind of take control from you, but with the same camera. And then like the characters will just speak dialogue, voice dialogue and whatnot, but like from just like the gameplay camera that you're already in. Like it's like presented that way where there's no cutscenes. It's just like in real time dialogue. And for like big scenes, small scenes, like almost every scene is like this, at least starting out, which is weird to me because that's not usually what you expect from a game like this. But one thing that actually makes it kind of tedious is that you can't skip the scenes and you can't even like click through the dialogue like you could in like a Persona or something that has, dialogue boxes. You have to let it play out. So it's just a weird decision. Like I don't understand why they did it this way. Maybe it's just a budget thing. Like we literally can't animate scenes right now, so we're just going to voice dialogue and slap it on. I guess.
Sometimes like on principle, I think the idea of that sounds good because that was like the whole Half-Life thing, right? Where everything was told through gameplay. But what I'm imagining though is that it's like the same idea, only executed poorly, where you're just like controlling your party and you're just like walking in circles while you're waiting for dialogue to finish.
I think Chow is actually watching me stream it, and like there are several scenes when like there's like an extended 3 minutes or something of dialogue, and like I'm taking my character and I'm just like literally like pacing in circles, like while everyone else is talking, because you can't do anything else, and it's not really a cutscene, and I don't know, it's just a cutscene or lack of cutscene, but it's just weird. Like I didn't expect it. And it does make things take longer because, like a Persona game or something, you can just read the dialogue and maybe click to the next person or whatnot and not let the voice line carry out. Or you could, in Star Ocean 4, you could skip the scene entirely. And one actually great thing about Star Ocean 4 is when you skip a scene, it gives you a summary of it. So like you don't have to watch it; you could just skip it and like, okay, what happened here?
Which out of any game that you would recommend that for, Star Ocean 4 would be
Star Ocean 4. It's like perfect. But anyways, yeah, that's just the first thing that kind of caught me as I played through the game. There are more cutscenes that kind of come in the later half of the game, like actual like animated scenes, but they're very rare, at least in the first part. Now, the combat. Well, how should I put this? The game itself is really similar to 4 and 3 in terms of like the basics of the combat and the arts and the skills and the crafting and the things like that. And there are parts of Star Ocean traditional systems that I am fond of, but there are also parts that I wish they've been like since 3 or even since 2 or earlier. Like I wish they would improve on this, and they haven't yet. So, how do I put this? One thing about Star Ocean games that I do genuinely like is not necessarily the direct combat of the games, but the kind of the systems in place for like crafting, for putting various stats on your characters. In Star Ocean 5, you have a role system which gives you various bonuses. You literally unlock like 100 different. They're called roles, and it's roles like Berserker or Instigator or Troubleshooter or something like that. And you basically equip them like equipment, and they give you bonuses. Like Berserker is like you do more damage, but you take more damage. There's one where it's like you cast faster, or you guard more often. If you like, you can. Some of these roles affect how the AI behaves. So you put it on like. You put it on a different character and they might guard more often and they might do more things. And like, I actually appreciate this sort of flexible systems like that actually really tweak how the game plays. And also like, rather than just picking up a stronger sword that has a higher stat or whatever, like you can do some kind of crazy nifty things in terms of like, if I equip these weapons, if I place these things, these crafted items onto the weapon, and if I attach these rolls, I can kind of build my character in a way. And I genuinely like that. And Star Ocean games, especially when you get into like the post-game nonsense of Star Ocean, you really need to do that. And I like that. And Star Ocean 5 has that too. But the one thing about Star Ocean combat that I really don't like is that the best way to play the game is just to spam the strongest skill over and over. That's it. There's no thought in terms of like coordination or comboing or some sort of method. It's just, what's your strongest skill? Do that button, do it again, do it again, do it again, and that's it. And it's like, that's the most efficient way to play the game. Is your damage is going to be highest. You're going to have the easiest time if you do that. But of course, it's boring. And I like games like let's just say Tales of Arise, for instance, since it's a similar party-based action RPG. Like Tales of Arise will literally penalize you if you do the same skill over and over. Mm-hmm. It wants you to at least do different combos. You have the different meters that build. It's like a plate spinning RPG. We've used that phrase before, where like you have your chain meter, you have your like partner meter or whatever, your break meter, and different other abilities you can do, and you cannot just spam the same skill over and over. And one thing I really wish for Star Ocean 6 is like, give me a reason not to just spam the same skill over and over.
And of course, the thing running in my head right now is Star Ocean 3, sidekick dimension door, sidekick dimension door.
Sidekick dimension door. Or in Star Ocean 4, Arumat skill Dragon Roar. That's the best skill in the game. Control Arumat, just do Dragon Roar over and over and over. And that's the best way to win. I played the Star Ocean 1 like remaster port couple years ago that they did, and it's actually the same thing there. I forget what the skill is called, but it's similar to Dragon Roar, and it's just like there's no reason not to do that, and it's just it's like almost like a failure in game design, to be honest. But anyway,
it's like if I'm not incentivized to do anything but this, I'm just going to do this.
Yeah. So excuse me. But yeah, so Star Ocean 5, it's similar to 4 otherwise. Like I said, the characters are better, the presentation is worse, the combat, the one hitch to the combat. Yeah, it's on par. I would actually probably say 3 and 4's combat is probably better than 5. The element of 5 that is unique to it is that you have 7 characters, and they all participate in battle at the same time. Tri-Ace has kind of tried this idea before. They did it with what was that game called? Infinite Undiscovery. What a title, huh? Where you have like a massive party.
But I don't remember like how the party works in it.
Yeah, you basically have like a whole party with you there too. So I have beaten the game now, and I actually did do I did dive into all the post game nonsense that Star Ocean games have, because I don't know, it's kind of fun just to like, you know, the Ethereal Queen, which is a recurring post game boss in Star Ocean and other Tri-Ace games, has like 140,000 HP, I think, or maybe it's 14 million. I forget how many zeros there are, and it gets kind of nuts and crazy, and I kind of like that. So I hope Star Ocean 6 does that as well in terms of just some crazy post game. But I just really hope the combat is better. I hope the presentation is better. Not just cutscenes, like the presence of cutscenes, but Star Ocean 5 came out in 2016, so like 6 years ago or so, and the animations in the few cutscenes it has are really poor. It's the type of it reminds me of like PS2 era JRPG animation where the characters like move like marionettes and they like animate in like really exaggerated ways, even if they're just like shrugging their shoulders or nodding their head. It's like this overly animated motion that doesn't look natural at all. And I really hope that it's like that Star Ocean 6 is improved there just from like a presentation standpoint. And you know, one thing I just thought of, the title Integrity and Faithlessness, having beaten the game, I have no idea why it's titled that. There's nothing in the game. English. Like A New Hope or The Last Hope, which is Star Ocean 4. It's like, okay, that's more generic. You know, you're the last person to, you know, you're basically the hope, you know, you're the only person that can save the world or whatever. But here it's like, I have no idea what faithlessness is referring to. Like the bad guy in this game doesn't have a lot of integrity because he's a bad guy. Or I don't know. Anyways, but yeah, it's just like it's a mediocre game at best. It has some of the common Star Ocean elements that I like, but there are a lot of poor things that like I really hope these are improved on when Star Ocean 6 comes out.
Well, thank you for suffering through that for us. But it sounds like you actually picked out a few things that you did genuinely like, so it wasn't all bad. Who do we know who's covering Star Ocean 6 / The Divine Force?
I don't think we've assigned anyone yet. I might assign myself.
I was about to say, like, I don't know how much competition there's going to be for that one. It's weird because we don't want to like just bag on the game before it releases, because maybe it'll be a big surprise. And out of the quick showing that we've seen with the big open areas and things like that, it looks like they've really put some ambition behind it. But it'll, you know,
the models still look kind of weird. Like I remember when this Star Ocean models, for whatever reason, they look like dolls and like creepy dolls in some way. I don't know if it's like the proportions of the head or the eyes or something, but I remember when this trailer was first airing, like it was obviously a space themed game, so that was one clue. But like as soon as they showed a character, I was like, "Yep, this is Star Ocean." You can just tell because it's got a bad character model, and maybe that's just part of the style. But
and
anyways,
people were wishing like before the PlayStation version of Star Ocean 4, like, can we just have the character art instead of like these weird model renders? But
yeah, that was part of the weird Xbox 360 like era when they landed like exclusive JRPGs for a while.
I really hated that time. It's like, oh, you hated 2D portraits, we'll give you 3D models. And it's like, can we just have the option to choose instead of
Like,
just,
I actually did not know that Star Ocean 4's characters were designed by what's his name, Katsumi Inami. Like, I literally did not know that because you don't see his art in the Western version of the game. You see just the model instead. So it was not until the game came out on PS3 and then the remaster that came out just a few years ago, like 3 or 4 years ago. That's when they actually used the actual like character art.
Is he the artist on 6? Do we know?
No. So Katsumi Inami is the artist of the Crossbell games.
He did the Star Ocean 1 remaster.
He did Star Ocean 1. He did E7. So he's done a bunch of Falcom stuff, and he also did Star Ocean 4 as well as the mobile game. Star Ocean 5 and Star Ocean 6 both have the same character artist, and it's Akiman. Is like his pen name or whatever.
Oh right,
Akiman. So it's the same artist as 6. And to be honest, I don't mind a lot of the designs in Star Ocean 5. Like I like Anne. She's kind of wearing like a leather like frock. And she's like a punch lady. She like martial artist. Well, that's what she does. And I don't mind like Fidel's hoodie or the cleric Miki's like robe and things like that. I prefer that more than like Miracle, who is like a literal cat girl who wears basically nothing or whatever in Star Ocean 4. But yeah, Star Ocean 6, get hype.
Not on our anticipated list, but it is coming out this year. So thank you for sharing your experience with that. And I think that pretty much covers us for the 2 games that we wanted to talk about for games we've been playing. I did talk last week about Expeditions Rome at length, so I won't tread the same ground here. I will just reiterate that I did write up a review for the site that I put up this morning, and I didn't realize until like I was late in the game that not Star Ocean. My brain is poisoned by your discussion now. Expeditions Rome plays a lot like Wasteland 3 in terms of being like this phase-based, turn-based encounter where it's almost like Fire Emblem, where you can move all of your units at any given time on your phase's turn. And so that I feel like I enjoy more than the comparison that I used last week was Divinity Original Sin, which wasn't a very good comparison, honestly, because that's more purely turn-based, where you must move one unit, then the next unit, or whatever. But one thing about Expeditions Rome that I did want to give one quick shout out for before closing the book on it here is that I did actually really like kind of how it progressed its story near the end of the game. So Expeditions Rome takes place in like the 1st century BC, like around 60 to 40 BC. And it takes place over the course of several years, like across 3 different campaigns that are spaced several years apart. So basically, the game is a long game. It took me about 50 hours, and it covers a great deal of time, like in-game, like 8 or 9 years. So that's a hard thing to pull off, I think, where like the characters are implied to have known each other by the end of the game for a decade at that point, which, when you've only known them for a week, that's how long it took you to play the game, it might not feel like it, but I feel like something about Expeditions Rome actually did sell that, both in terms of like the relationship between the characters on your team, plus like your relationship with the antagonist. And I think Expeditions Rome has my favorite sort of antagonist. He is like not comically evil. He's not outright hostile. He's not like Luca Blight or Sephiroth or whatever, Seymour, where it's just like he is the bad guy and he will let you know it. It starts out that he's like on the front. The antagonist's name is Vitellis Lurco, and he starts out as basically like a Roman politician, and then like over the years, it's actually almost kind of like a Final Fantasy Tactics Delita thing, where he becomes consul of Rome, and then during a kind of a catastrophe or an impending war, he gets appointed dictator by the Senate. I guess that's almost like Star Wars in a way, and it basically like builds like this tension where eventually he becomes like too powerful to ignore, and like this sort of escalating uneasy alliance that you have with him just starts to break down at the end. And by the end of the game, I actually was like really into the story of Expeditions Rome, even though I did not go into the game expecting that at all, and not really like even being like really high on the Roman setting at all in the first place. It's not something that inherently interests me. So I guess what I want to get at as a closing statement is that I went into this game with kind of like completely on a whim expectations, don't know what I'm expecting. If I'll be pleasantly surprised, that'll be nice. And I was pleasantly surprised. Like I ended up basically really being thankful that I took the time to play through it, because I could have skipped it if it released in any other month. So if you are at all interested in, if you enjoyed turn-based Western RPGs, or Wasteland 3 in particular in terms of its pure combat gameplay, then Expeditions Rome is right down the same alley. And I ended up enjoying the story and the characters of that game far more than I expected to. And I have my full review up on the site if you're interested in reading more.
Sounds cool. Now I just need to like set aside 40 hours to play it.
That is our constant burden, is setting aside time. Yep. I wanted to get the Gnosia PC, which we'll talk about later. And I'm like, when will I squeeze that in? I still have Monster Hunter Rise that I downloaded on PC that I've only put like 2 hours in. And I said last week podcast, like I will get to it, but now I'm going to play Pokemon. And I don't know, February is close approaching, and there's a lot coming out in February too. So our constant struggle.
Elden Ring.
Site. Yep.
Remember when JRPGs were 10 hours long, like Chrono Trigger?
15 hours, 20 hours. All right, so we'll go into the news section this week. Not any big hitters like we had last week with the Activision Blizzard acquisition, but a couple interesting things here. First of all, we did talk about kind of like some rumor mongering on this topic over the last couple of weeks. We talked about the changing of the guard over at RGG Studios under Sega, with Toshihiro Nagoshi leaving the studio, presumably to form his own. Well, we learned about the details of that over the last week. Underneath publisher NetEase, they've established Nagoshi Studio, and this includes not only Toshihiro Nagoshi, but also several other veterans from RGG Studios that have worked on games like Yakuza and Judgment, including the producer Hosokawa and a programmer, Koji Tokaida. So basically a lot of RGG Studios vets have formed a new studio underneath Nagoshi, underneath the aptly named Nagoshi Studio with NetEase. Now, I was actually asking Adam before this podcast, based on the types of games that I play, I have no idea like who NetEase does or what they're known for. So like Adam basically answered me like mobile games, but like I normally with some mobile games, I'm at least like aware of what they are through like just general osmosis. But I looked at like in the NetEase portfolio, and I don't know if I'm just in a completely different realm in terms of what games I play, but I did not see anything that I recognized, which I guess might explain like what the incentive is to create such a studio with these known names underneath their banner. And then along with the establishment of Nagoshi Studio, Nagoshi himself did publish a message basically about like their aspirations. And we have up on our news story on the site the context of this essentially this blog post. But I'll be honest, like it's a bit of like high level, almost mealy-mouthed speak that it's hard to almost get a latch on. Where, for instance, where it's like one of the paragraphs is like, people like to see their dreams in entertainment. Entertainment gives them hope in life, to soothe them in times of difficulty and add excitement to happy times. This is our goal. This is our aspiration. And it just seems like it's hard to get a latch on like what exactly they're working on or what sorts of games they'll be doing. So that was kind of when I was looking at this news drop, my takeaway is that it's hard to get excited for this, even though I just recently played through Yakuza 6 and want to play through Judgment and really enjoyed Like a Dragon as well. For some reason, I look at this and I'm just not, I didn't see enough.
There's nothing concrete yet. So we'll see eventually, but right now it's just ideas.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so we might reconvene in a couple of years, or when we don't know like how far in advance they'll announce what their first project is, or what type of game they want to be working on. But Nagoshi Studio under NetEase, we know that RGG is in good hands. We know that obviously Nagoshi was instrumental in exploiting the popularity of that Yakuza series and branching out into other series like Judgment. So it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing underneath their new context and their new environment. But as of right now, it's just kind of all well wishes and aspirations. Normally when we talk about trailers in the news section of this cast, I always wonder like how much there really is to latch onto when it's just like 90 seconds to 2 minutes of footage that anyone could watch on their own time. Like, do we really need to discuss it? But I am very glad that we have earmarked time in this podcast to talk about the quote unquote final trailer for one of the releases of this year that we actually are anticipating pretty highly, at least several of us, and that is Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. This obviously is releasing in just under 2 months in mid-March, and we got a final trailer for this game, which is a treat. It's not very often that I say, like, you should watch this trailer right now if you haven't yet, especially if you've already seen some other trailers for this game or some other screenshots and you don't think you need to see anymore. This trailer, I think, is fun and ends in a way that I was not expecting, where I was watching it. And again, this is called the final trailer for Stranger of Paradise. And I was halfway through watching it and I was telling Adam, like, man, this actually looks really fun. And then he asked me a question I was not expecting. He's like, did you get to Frank Sinatra yet? I'm like, wait, what? So if you want to know what I mean by that, you should watch the Stranger of Paradise final trailer and hopefully be as, like, I was almost grinning like an idiot, not because like everything in the trailer looks amazing, but just kind of like how campy it is, how like this is a video game, this should be fun. We're not trying to make this into like some blockbuster epic, we're just trying to have a good time. That was kind of the vibe that I was getting, that I have been getting for this game for a while now. And I do know that we've had people that played the stress test or like whatever that limited time demo from late last year, including James, that ended up really enjoying it. I know Adam has expressed his high anticipation for Stranger of Paradise as well. And basically, I'm saying that I'm starting to feel it too. I don't know.
There's something about a game that's like, this story doesn't seem like the type of story that you take 100% seriously, and it's not like, there's a fine line. We were actually talking about this, I remember, with George's on the podcast before, where it's like, it's not completely like irrelevant.
It's not a joke game,
but it's like a type of story that's just like, it seems like the type of tone and plot and characters that are just like, not super serious.
We're here to have a good time. We're not here to blow your minds. We're not here to be like, make a joke of it all either. We're just here for a good time. And I kind of like a game that's able to thread that needle, and hopefully
But also,
go ahead.
They also showed a trailer like shortly afterward. I think they called it like the basics of battle. That just showed, it's like a 4-minute, like more like a demo trailer, 4-minute like narrated overview about, here's how the game works, and it looks really nice, like as in terms of like how it plays, which, being, I guess, a Koei Tecmo. I know it's not the Neo team, I guess it's the Dissidia team, but it looks like, I'm hoping it plays well. Which,
well, people have outright found out that some of the enemies in Stranger of Paradise, at least in the demo, reused some animations from Neo 2 enemies. So,
well, even if it's not the same team, if they're able to learn anything or glean or carry over any of the success, because I adored Neo, it was my top game of that year, Neo 2, I mean. So I really hope that basically, if they have any sort of, if they're able to pull from that experience at all into Stranger of Paradise, then I know I'm in for a good time, because I thought that combat was really special and had a lot of variety, and I kind of can sort of see glimpses of it in Stranger of Paradise. And so this trailer also goes through like a lot of the expected boss fights, like the 4 fiends that originated in Final Fantasy 1, like Merilith, Lich, what are some of the other ones?
Kraken and
Kraken. And like it just looks like there was one where it's this big like fire snake thing. I don't even know what it is. It's been a long time since I played Final Fantasy 1. But it looks like it just has a really fun variety of enemies. It looks really challenging. I know like even the demo itself was really challenging for people just fighting. What was the boss in the demo? Chaos. Garland, duh. And then Chaos. It just looks like it's a good time. I'm excited for this game. And the trailer is a fun trailer.
They showed a job trailer, was it? There was a job trailer, and people said that there was going to be like 27 or is it 28 job classes?
It's 20-something job classes, yeah, which I love job systems in pretty much any game they appear in. So the fact that this has that as well, I think is really neat. And I'm already eagerly anticipating like people like theory crafting or ending up like testing different builds, and they find out like what's super broken. Because one thing that like, at least in terms of, I haven't played a lot of Koei Tecmo games, but in Neo, they weren't afraid to just let broken builds be broken builds. Where I feel like in Dark Souls, they're always like, and that's like the most contemporary sort of game I can think of. Whenever they iterated on that, they always, or even in like Code Vein, where certain builds ended up getting like nerfed or buffed in in a search of some sort of balance in a single player game. Where I hope in Stranger of Paradise they allow it just to go wild, and they're just like, if you pair these two abilities together from these two jobs, then you end up like being able to like be this unstoppable monster. I hope they have like a little bit of like, sometimes a little bit of lack of balance I think can be pretty fun. So hopefully they allow that here in Stranger of Paradise. We'll just continue wrapping through the news here. Here is something that has kind of become a staple of early year announcements on the RPG front, and that is for Elder Scrolls Online. So, Elder Scrolls Online, I feel like, is kind of like that Thomas the Tank Engine MMORPG, where it's just like trucking along and constantly going, and it seems to have like its population in place. And I've always been eager in playing it, but just don't have the time. They've announced a new expansion, which has been kind of an annual thing for that MMO since like 2018, 2017. They'll typically announce an expansion early in the year in January and then release in like the summer months, like May through July. Last year, I believe it was Blackmoon. This year, it is Elder Scrolls Online. Blackwood. I don't know why I thought it was Black Moon. A couple of years ago, it was Elsewhere. It was Morrowind, I think, was the first one. Anyways, to get to the news from this year, they've announced the Elder Scrolls Online High Isle. So this is the first chapter of it is called Legacy of the Bretons.
How Elder Scrolls Online does it?
Okay, I would explain. I'm looking at the thumbnail here, and I'm seeing Elder Scrolls Online High Isle Legacy of the Bretons. So it's like that's the three titles back to back to back.
So how Elder Scrolls does its updates is like every year they have like a campaign event, and this year's campaign is Legacy of the Bretons. Okay. Now it starts like in March. It's like an update to the current Elder Scrolls Online that will like start the storyline. And then if you want to continue it, you have to buy High Isle, which is like the second part of it. Oh, that's tricky. Yeah, and that's what they've done this like the last several years. Like I think last year's was like called the Gate of Oblivion was the campaign event, but then the actual like purchase product that you buy was Blackwood. That's how they've done it.
It is
it's a little bit confusing.
Yeah, so it's kind of weird because like different MMOs or online games will context what constitutes quote unquote an expansion in different ways. We've seen Final Fantasy on their like 2-year cadence for a while now. Elder Scrolls has obviously been on like a 1-year cadence for a while. So something that might be a Final Fantasy just like 0.3 patch ends up becoming an expansion in Elder Scrolls. And I'm not saying that to like belittle one or raise the other. It's just that, different studios based on their pipeline or however they decide to support their service game will just package their content releases differently but might borrow the same language, calling something an expansion or versus a content release versus a what did you call Legacy of the Bretons? Just like campaign event.
Oh, I forget the wording they use for it, but it's like that's like the broad umbrella, and then like underneath the umbrella is actually where High Isle is. It's
right. And I know that Elder Scrolls Online, unlike Final Fantasy or even like Guild Wars 2, it's you can jump into any expansion like in any order. They're not at least not completely experienced linearly, so you can kind of like pick and choose the areas you're most interested in. So I kind of do wish we still had like Adam Reese on the staff in just some ways, because I know that he had been playing Elder Scrolls Online, but unfortunately it's kind of fallen off, and I think it's kind of almost like a daunting task to get caught up at this point to be able to get someone on this podcast that's actually like really well versed and like has a character at endgame at Elder Scrolls Online to be really. I'd love to be able to talk with someone that's like, because right now we can kind of only speak to it at a high level.
Doesn't Alex play it a bit? Or
I think he used to, like the original version. Then he stopped.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those games where I can tell that it's really good if you're like into it, and that's always nice to see.
Yeah, and it's obviously like well supported. They've been on a really good pace, because sometimes with MMOs, or even like in my personal experience with Guild Wars 2, there's been like uneven release cadence. You never quite know what they're working on. But then Elder Scrolls Online and Final Fantasy XIV have been on a regular cadence for nearly a decade now, where Elder Scrolls Online has been releasing a yearly expansion since 2017 after releasing in 2014. So they've obviously found stability in that front, which when you're playing an online game, when you're in that experience where that you that is your, if you're a mono gamer, or if that is your like your one experience that you hold on to, keep installed on your hard drive, that you know it's going to be supported, that each year you can come into and expect a new content drop for Elder Scrolls, or every 2 years you'll get an expansion for Final Fantasy. I feel bad to kind of always keep bringing up Final Fantasy, but I guess as someone who doesn't play either of those two games, I do kind of admire seeing that both have been in such a seemingly good place for a while in terms of support from their studios and reception from their audience. Speaking of Final Fantasy, I guess I wasn't planning for the segue, but here it is. They have resumed digital sales. So I guess like the clot of server congestion at the release of Endwalker is finally subsiding a bit. So those digital sales that had been paused are now reopened. And on top of that, we kind of alluded to this in one of our previous podcasts. They have opened the new Oceania data center, which I know was something that was really of interest for Paige, who is from Australia, and I believe was interested in switching over to that data center. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't followed through. But yeah, just kind of they had mentioned those plans late last year, earlier this year, and they have gone through. I guess there was also just an update 6.08, which made some tweaks to certain job balance. I don't know if James can talk about that a little more, but it seems like a minor update in the scheme of things.
Yeah,
Well, no, they buffed Dragoon, but who cares? They got rid of our goddamn tether.
No, this is necessary. It's either you can't see in P3 or you will have that tether.
Chow, you can't see either way.
It's a good thing, trust me. I know people like the animation of it, but when people see things that they're unfamiliar with, they'll be like, oh, it's like, why you're tailored to me? I'm going to run away from you. And they just kill themselves doing that.
All right, so maybe not such a small small patch if you play Dragoon.
It also fixed the Paladin, so it's actually not a joke.
Yeah, they actually have more DPS than Warrior now, but that's only if they're a good Paladin player. Apparently, Warrior still out DPS them on average, so...
Yeah, that's because the skill ceiling for the Paladin rotation is much higher than the skill ceiling for the Warrior rotation. Warrior is just... It is literally Unga Bunga the class in all meaning, because I think it's appropriate, really simple.
It's kind of like the archetypal class, where it's like, if you want to play something that's still, I assume, effective, but pretty easy to play Warrior. If you want to play something that's a little bit more technically involved with a higher skill ceiling, it sounds like Paladin is now the better option for that. A few other small notes to kind of wrap out this podcast. Here's one that I am kind of interested in, but not at this moment, is that we have learned about the release of the first DLC addition to Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. We had already known that they were going to be doing DLC. Pathfinder Kingmaker got 3 pieces of DLC through its release year. So completely not surprised that Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous is going through the same schedule. Wrath of the Righteous Inevitable Excess will launch on February 15th. In addition to this, the planned console versions of Wrath of the Righteous have been delayed to autumn of this year. In Pathfinder Kingmaker, the 3 DLCs that they added were kind of like they added a story around an additional companion. They added kind of like a side story, which would then import into the main game based on your decisions made there. And then they also added like more of a roguelike dungeon mode at the end. It sounds like this DLC expansion for Wrath of the Righteous is a little bit more traditional. It says it takes place basically right before the end of the game. So not like post-credit DLC, but kind of like almost in the... Isn't this how Outer Worlds did it too? Where it's like before the ending events of the game, you also did this side quest, which was added on DLC later or whatever. So it says it'll take players on a new adventure that awaits just before their moment of greatest triumph, basically right before the end of the game. It's basically about defending the space-time continuum against imminent collapse. So pretty high water stuff there. I did enjoy Wrath of the Righteous a bit, and I am eager to play this DLC, at least to kind of experience it. However, I know that they're going to be launching more, or at least they plan to. So I will probably just hold off, because they're still also working on bug fixes and just general polish. So kind of what I did with Kingmaker is just that I waited a year and then I came back once all the DLC was out, once the game was in a really good place, and just experienced it again from the beginning. I will probably just do that again for Wrath of the Righteous. It's cool to see that they had another successful launch and they're still supporting it with DLC, but I will probably just hold off for now. We got a release date for the second of the 2 Prinny presents classics. So we saw a couple of years ago the NIS America kind of take this initiative to re-release some of their like PlayStation 2, PSP era games for PC and Switch. This started with Soul Nomad and the World Eaters and Phantom Brave with Prinny Presents Classics Volume 1. And Volume 2, we learned about last September, which contains Makai Kingdom Chronicles of the Sacred Tome and ZHP. And specifically, the cool thing about this is that Makai Kingdom ended up getting a enhanced re-release that we never saw in the West, but we will get with as part of this Classics Volume 2. So these two games will release on May 10th in North America, May 13th in Europe. I forget, ZHP, didn't someone on this podcast play this back in 2010 on PSP? I remember that when this second volume was first announced, that someone we had on the podcast was really eager to revisit ZHP at one point.
I've been meaning to play things like Phantom Brave for forever, and that's been on PC even longer than this initiative, and I still haven't gotten around to it.
I'd be in the original game.
I've heard Phantom Brave is really good. Like it's like an SRPG with like a ring system instead of a traditional like grid. I heard it's solid.
It is a solid game. It is a lot different than the standard kind of like the Sky of kind of fare.
That's what makes it interesting to me, is that it's different.
But it still got the same same artist, the same leveling system where you could go up to 9,999, but obviously you probably beat the game around like level 100-ish or even lower, depending on your pace of playing the game or how much grind you want to do.
I mean, I played Disgaea 1 and 2, and I just like played them normally. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to deal with this, I was just saying with Star Ocean, I like to mess around with like the stats and stuff. Disgaea, I'm just like, let me just play the story, and then I'm done.
I feel kind of silly, like we're talking about Volume 2, but it seems like more people are interested in playing the games contained in Volume 1 with Phantom Brave.
Well, I want to play Soul Nomad.
Well, no, I'm way more excited for Volume 2 because I actually own ZHP on Vita through the PS Store, and I've heard like a lot of good things about it.
Oh, so you've owned it but just haven't played it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so these games, Makai Kingdom and ZHP, are also releasing individually on Steam, and both of those store pages are already up with some footage and some screenshots. And then, of course, they'll be also releasing on Switch as the dual pack. It seems like as of just a couple days ago, Bravely Default Brilliant Lights has launched for mobile devices in Japan. So we talked about Brilliant Lights when it was first announced maybe a month ago on the podcast, how it kind of uses this.
Brilliant Lights was announced like last summer.
Oh, okay. I remember we just talked about how it borrows almost like the claymation kind of look from Bravely Default 2, but then incorporates a lot of the characters and locations from the other games in the series.
It has characters from both 1, 2, and it does have characters from 2nd.
Yeah. And of course, the main omission here is that, yes, it launched in Japan 2 days ago. We got an opening movie up on the site as part of the news post for that launch, but it has not been announced in any way or even teased for an English localization. So, unfortunately for that.
We probably have talked about this before, but like Square Enix's like localizations on their mobile games is just kind of weird. Like Dragon Quest, the Dai game, has got a simultaneous release, even though like the Dai console game has not been confirmed for the West. And like, I don't even know. I think the anime is getting a simul, like it's getting translated, but that's a weird one. And then like the Octopath mobile game came out like a year and a half ago. We never saw it. The Mana mobile game, which is coming out, is going to get like an English release, and they've already announced that. It's just, some get it, some don't.
Well, I mean, it's not the first time that we've seen like inconsistency from Square Enix in terms of games that they publish, in terms of worldwide release or not, what PC storefront it's on, who publishes it on certain consoles, whether like they let Nintendo take over for Switch releases or things like that. It's always kind of a grab bag and not a paragon of consistency there. So I don't know if maybe Josh would be interested in like playing the Japanese version of this. I'm not sure. Otherwise, we might just have to hold off and see if we'll ever see an English version of this, or if it'll end up being like the Octopath game, where we just happen to never see it because that's just how it is. Because we're at the whims of mercy of Square Enix. We did get a new set of character trailers for Triangle Strategy. And I know that, Adam, I might just hand it off to you here because I know that you've been working really hard in terms of kind of keeping an up-to-date, almost catalog of all the announced characters for this game, and like the whole cast and all the basically the whole roster. So I know that they've announced specific things over the course of the last week, including like a specific trailer on Frederica, which seems to be like one of the main heroines of this game. So what is the status of where we're at in terms of these different like spotlight look-ins?
Yeah, so
Square
Enix kind of has like two different series that they're kind of procedurally going through now. One are these character trailers. They've released the first two character trailers, which is the Glenbrook Prince, whose name I forget, Roland. He was number one. Then Frederica Aesfrost is number two. And then they just released number 3 in Japan, who is the Wolfort steward, whose name I forget. Let me look it up here. So they've released 3 character trailers in Japan. The third character trailer hasn't been released in English yet. They're kind of oddly like not in
Staggered
because it's Square Enix is publishing it in Japan, Nintendo in the West. It's a little bit weird. The guy I was thinking of is Benedict Pascal. So they just got his character trailer. But these character trailers also introduce some of like the related characters that are like involved with that main character. But alongside these character trailers, Square Enix is also just releasing basically character bios of many different characters that are found in the game. And if you played Final Fantasy Tactics, or especially Tactics Ogre, you know, these games have a lot of characters, both playable and just, you know, you have different kingdoms, different houses of kingdoms, you know, you have different family members. There's a lot. And they've introduced 37 characters so far. So they're not like, I highly doubt they're all playable. In fact, I think like your main character's dad dies like early on. But yeah, we have 37 characters so far, and I'm really hoping. It's been a long time since we've had like a Tactics Ogre or even a Final Fantasy Tactics, even in Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. It's been a while, so I think it's been more than 10 years since Tactics Ogre, PSP, or Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, or like War of the Lions. So it's like I'm hoping this can at least, you know,
bring back that genre.
Yeah, like I'm not saying it has to be better than those, but like hopefully it is, you know, respectable and pretty good. So it won our most anticipated award for this year. So
maybe it's Squaresoft or Square Enix's mindset. It's like, oh, it's a turn-based strategy games. They don't really sell, and they always have this mindset everything gotta be action these days or something like that.
Do we know who does the artwork of these characters?
I don't think we know.
Because it's really unique. It's not quite like Right to Kazama or any of the other ones that I can kind of like think that might have done it.
Like Akihiko Yoshida did the
it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't look like Yoshida. It doesn't look like Kazama. It doesn't look like.
We posted like a collage of the characters on Twitter, and people do seem to really like the art overall. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm kind of hoping it comes to PC relatively soon, but
yeah, no. But thanks for keeping up to date on all that news, and it's kind of at a drip feed mode where if they've got 37 characters, and even if they do character trailers on, I don't know, 6 of them, the fact that you have been keeping on top of them, and with Kite's help for some of the translations for some of the stuff that stays only in Japan for a while in terms of the press releases. At the very end here, we just have a couple things that are available now. One thing that we were talking about and we knew was coming but didn't have a release date until it was launched was Gnosia is now available on PC. Obviously, Gnosia was a major presence in our last Game of the Year award discussion in terms of landing in our final list. At the time, it was a Switch exclusive, and I guess it was also on Vita in Japan, but it is now also available on Steam. So that's kind of what I was waiting for, but you know, the continuing conundrum of trying to make time for it, but it is available now. And also available is a free demo for the upcoming Monark, which is releasing in under a month. This Nintendo is available on both Nintendo eShop and on PSN. So Monark itself will also release on Steam, but as far as I know, the demo is only available on the consoles. So I do know we've got a couple people, contributors to staff, who have been either playing or planning to play the demo. So maybe over the course of the next month, we might get some impressions on that demo here on this podcast, or we might just wait until we get the full game covered upon its release on February 22nd. And that kind of covers it for this podcast. So kind of a lot of cool discussions. Thank you, Jess, for coming on to kick off things with a really cool intro to what Pokemon Legends Arceus has in store for us, for some of us that are going to continue playing or start over the next couple days. Thank you, Adam, for going through your experience with Star Ocean 5, kind of getting a chance to talk about a game that otherwise could be completely skipped on this podcast, because I don't think we ever actually wrote a review for it. I'm not actually sure.
No, we have a review.
Oh, who wrote that?
Let
me see.
I think it's Andrea.
Oh, Andrea did. So Andrea, who is now writing Pokemon guides for us, apparently covered Star Ocean 5 back in 2016. So it's been a while. Of course, all the upcoming games that we got a chance to look into, all that news is up on the site, including those features that I rambled off at the start of the podcast, including Paige's Atelier Sophie 2 preview, my Expeditions Rome review. We've got at least 10 Pokemon Legends Arceus guides up on the site now, including Alex's kind of RPG slanted feature for that game. So thank you so much for listening. We will be back next week with probably more Pokemon, and as we go into the month of February, where we have a lot of games that we're eagerly anticipating and hoping to get into. We do have all of the news up on our site at rpgsite.net. If you click the link at the top, you can go to our Discord or go to Discord/RPG site. And we also do have our presence on all the social channels, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Just search for RPG site and you'll probably find us. Until you hear from us next time, stay safe, take care, and we'll see you then.